The warning had existed for 10,000 years. It was carved into the great stone walls of the Galactic Council chamber. It was written in the first page of every species welcome document when they joined the Council. It was spoken in whispers by diplomats and shouted by military commanders. The warning was simple, it was clear, and nobody knew why it existed. Never summon humans into your wars. Ambassador Telos had read those words 100 times in his long life. He was old now, even by the standards of the collective. His crystalline body had grown cloudy with age, and his light pulsed slower than it once did. He had served his people for 300 years. He had negotiated treaties. He had prevented conflicts. He had always believed that wisdom and patience could solve any problem. But wisdom and patience could not stop the Empire. They had arrived in space 6 months ago. Their warships had blocked every exit from the home system. Their weapons had shattered the orbital defense platforms like glass, and their demands had been simple. Surrender everything, become slaves, or die. They were not warriors, they were scholars and artists. Their bodies were made of living crystal that sang when light passed through them. They had no weapons that could match the fleet. They had no allies willing to risk war with such a powerful enemy. They had only their shields, and those shields were failing. Telos stood in the emergency chamber beneath the capital city. Around him, the last leaders of the collective waited in silence. The shields above them flickered and groaned. Another bombardment was coming. They all knew that this would be the last. There is one option remaining, Telos said. His voice was tired. The emergency contact protocol. The room fell completely silent. Every knew what that meant. Every knew the warning. The council forbids it, said Elder Prism, his crystal body dark with fear. They say the humans are dangerous beyond measure. They say no species has ever summoned them and remained unchanged. The council also promised to protect us, Telos replied. Where are their ships? Where are their soldiers? We sent 50 requests for help. 50. They sent us thoughts and prayers and nothing else. He moved to the ancient communication device in the center of the room. It was a relic from the early days of the collective, when they had first discovered that they were not alone in the universe. The device had never been used. It was connected to a single destination, Earth. If we do this, Elder Prism said, there is no going back. The humans will come, and we do not know what they will do. Telos placed his hand on the device. Above them, the shield screamed as another wave of weapons struck the surface. Somewhere in the distance, a building collapsed. Children were crying. His people were dying. I know what they will do, Telos said. I choose the unknown. He activated the device. The signal traveled across the galaxy at speeds that should have been impossible. It passed through dead systems and living ones. It crossed the great empty spaces between stars, and it arrived at a small blue planet orbiting an average yellow sun. On Earth, it was a Tuesday morning. Captain Park Jinnah was eating breakfast in the military cafeteria when her communicator buzzed. She was a small woman with short black hair and eyes that never seemed to blink. She had commanded the UNS Resolve for 7 years. She had fought pirates, smugglers, and one unfortunate diplomatic incident that nobody was allowed to talk about. She was known for 2 things. She never raised her voice, and she never lost. She read the message on her communicator. Then she read it again. Then she set down her chopsticks and stood up. Lieutenant Lei, she said to the young man sitting across from her, finish your food. We are going to war. Lee looked up from his rice. He was tall and thin, with the careful eyes of a tactical officer who saw patterns where others saw chaos. Which war, Captain? A new one very far away. Finish eating. You will need the energy. Within 3 hours, the crew of the Resolve had assembled. They gathered in the briefing room of the ship, 12 people who had served together long enough to communicate in glances and small gestures. The chief engineer was already studying the technical specifications of the fleet. She was a quiet woman who preferred machines to people. She had once repaired a damaged reactor core while the ship was under attack, and she had complained only that the noise made it hard to concentrate. The combat specialist was cleaning his weapons. He was large and muscular, with a gentle face that did not match his profession. He had a daughter on Earth. He showed her picture to anyone who asked and many who did not. Sarah, the communications officer, was already intercepting transmissions. She was young, barely 25, with a smile that made people underestimate her. She spoke 14 languages and could break most encryptions faster than the computers could. Captain Jinnah stood before them and explained the situation. A species called the was dying. An empire called the was killing them. The Galactic Council had done nothing. They had called for help. Earth had answered. The Council warns every species never to summon humans into their wars, Jinnah said. They do not explain why. I believe we will show them. Lee raised his hand. Captain, the fleet has 400 warships. We have 12. Yes, Jinnah said. They are badly outnumbered. Nobody laughed. They had served with Jinnah long enough to know that she was not joking. The 12 ships of the human battle group jumped toward space. The journey took 4 days. During that time, Jinnah and her crew studied everything they could find about They learned that there were conquerors. They had destroyed 17 species. They believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. They believed that mercy was weakness. They have never fought humans, observed. No, Jinnah agreed. They have not. I almost feel sorry for them. When the human ships arrived in space, Ambassador Telos was waiting. He had expected diplomats. He had expected negotiators. He had expected, perhaps, some kind of formal ceremony. Instead, a small human woman in black armor stepped onto his ship, looked at the tactical display showing the fleet, and spoke 5 words that would change the history of the galaxy. Show me their supply lines. Telos did not understand. You wish to negotiate with them, to discuss terms. Jinnah turned to look at him. Her eyes were calm. Her voice was soft, but something in her expression made the ancient ambassador take a step backward. Ambassador, she said, I did not come here to negotiate. I came here to win. Now show me how to hurt them. For the first time in 6 months, Telos felt something he had forgotten existed. Hope, Warlord, had conquered 37 worlds. He had burned cities and broken armies. He had made entire species kneel before him and beg for death. In all his long years of war, he had never once felt fear. He did not feel it now either. What he felt when 12 tiny ships appeared on his sensors was amusement. He sat on his command throne, a massive chair made from the bones of his enemies. Around him, his officers worked in respectful silence. The bridge of his flagship was dark and cold, the way they liked it. Screens showed the positions of his 400 warships surrounding the victory was certain. It had always been certain. What are those? Asked, pointing at the 12 new contacts. His sensor officer checked the readings twice before answering. Human vessels, Warlord, small, lightly armed, no significant threat. Had heard of humans, a young species from a distant part of the galaxy. They had only been traveling between stars for a few centuries. They were small. They were weak. They were nothing. Open a channel, commanded. Tell them to surrender or die. The message was sent. For several minutes there was no response. Began to grow impatient. Then, finally, a reply came. It was not words. It was a single data packet containing nothing but a countdown timer. 6 hours. Stared at the number. What is this? What does it mean? His communications officer shook his head. Unknown, Warlord, perhaps a technical error. Ignore it, decided. They are trying to confuse us. Continue the siege. The countdown continued. 6 hours became 5, 5 became 4. The human ships did not move. They simply sat at the edge of the system, waiting, watched them with growing irritation. What were they planning? What did they think 12 ships could do against 400? On the bridge of the Resolve, Captain Jinnah was drinking tea. "They are not responding to our message," Sora reported. "I did not expect them to," Jinnah said. "They think we are weak. They think the timer is a bluff." "Is it?" Lee asked. Jinnah smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Lieutenant Lee, when have I ever bluffed?" In the engine room was coordinating with the other ships in the fleet. For the past 4 days, while traveling to space, she had been planning something. The humans had not come to fight the fleet directly. That would be stupid. 400 against 12 was not a battle. It was a massacre. But humans did not fight fair. They never had. They never would. "Are the charges in position?" Jinnah asked through the communicator. Checked her displays. All 17 targets confirmed. Antimatter devices are armed and ready. "Excellent. When the timer reaches 0, detonate." Ambassador Telos was on the bridge watching with confusion. "Captain, I do not understand. Your ships have not moved. You are not attacking the fleet. What is happening?" Jinnah turned to face him. "Ambassador, tell me something. In all your studies of galactic warfare, have you ever heard of a species attacking supply lines instead of military targets?" Telos thought about it. "No, wars are fought between fleets. The winner is the one with more ships, more weapons, more soldiers." "That is why you lose," Jinnah said simply. "A fleet is not just ships. It is fuel. It is ammunition. It is food and medicine and spare parts. Destroy those things and the ships become useless. That is what humans understand. We do not fight wars to win. We fight wars to make the enemy regret starting them." The timer reached 0. Across 3 different star systems, 17 fuel depots exploded simultaneously. The antimatter charges that had designed were small but powerful. They did not just destroy the depots. They vaporized them. In a single moment, the fleet lost 30% of its operational fuel reserves. Warlord felt the reports hit him like physical blows. Depot 7 destroyed, Depot 12 destroyed, Depot 23 destroyed. The names kept coming. His officers were shouting. Alarms were ringing. And on every military frequency, a human voice was speaking. It was Sora. Her voice was calm and pleasant, like she was reading a bedtime story. "Attention, Empire. You have our attention. Do you still want it?" Rose from his throne. His hands were shaking, not with fear, with rage. "Find those human ships, destroy them all." The fleet moved. 200 warships broke formation and charged toward the position of the human vessels. Their weapons were hot. Their commanders were screaming for blood. They would crush these insects. They would burn their ships and dance on the ashes. But when they arrived at the coordinates, the human ships were gone. "Where are they?" demanded. "Where did they go?" His sensor officers searched desperately. The human vessels had simply vanished. They were not where the sensors said they should be. They were not anywhere. "We cannot find them, Warlord. Their ships are too small. They blend into the background radiation." Stood in the center of his bridge, surrounded by 400 warships, and for the first time in his life he felt something cold crawling up his spine. It was not fear. It could not be fear. He was Warlord. He had conquered 37 worlds. But the human ships were gone. His fuel depots were burning. And somewhere in the darkness, 12 tiny vessels were waiting. Watching. Planning. On the Resolve, Captain Jinnah set down her empty teacup. "Phase 1 complete," she said. "Now the real war begins." Lee was studying the fleet movements. "They are angry. They will make mistakes." "Yes," Jinnah agreed. "Angry enemies are stupid enemies, and stupid enemies are dead enemies." Was checking his weapons. "When do we start hunting?" "Soon. Let them search for us. Let them waste fuel. Let them scream into the void. And then, when they are tired and frustrated and scared, we will show them what humans do to those who threaten our friends." Ambassador Telos listened to all of this with growing amazement. He had expected the humans to fight. He had not expected them to be so calm, so patient, so terrifyingly methodical. "Captain," he said quietly, "the Galactic Council warned us never to summon your kind. They said you were dangerous. They did not explain why." Jinnah looked at him. Her eyes were soft, almost kind. "Ambassador, we are not dangerous because we are strong. We are dangerous because we do not stop. We do not surrender. We do not give up. Once we decide that a cause is worth fighting for, we will burn everything we have to win. That is what the Council fears, not our weapons, our commitment." She turned back to the tactical display. "The started this war," she said. "We are going to finish it." On the third day of the war, they began to understand why the galaxy feared humans. Ambassador Telos had watched many wars from a distance. He had studied the great conflicts of history. He knew how species were supposed to fight. Fleets formed lines. They fired weapons. The stronger side won. It was simple. It was logical. It was how war had always worked. The humans did not fight this way. Captain Jinnah had split her 12 ships into 6 pairs. Each pair was assigned a different type of target. Not warships, not battle stations, not anything that could fight back. Instead, the humans hunted the support vessels that kept the fleet alive. Medical ships, communication relays, ammunition transports, food carriers, the invisible army that every military needs but nobody thinks about. The first attack came at dawn time. A medical ship was traveling between the main fleet and a damaged cruiser. It was unarmed. It was not expecting trouble. Then 2 human vessels appeared from nowhere, disabled its engines with precise shots, and vanished before the escorts could respond. The sent rescue ships. By the time they arrived, the humans had already hit another target. Lee called this distributed harassment. He explained it to Ambassador Telos using small models and simple words. "We cannot defeat their fleet directly, so we make their fleet defeat itself. Every rescue mission pulls ships away from the siege. Every lost supply ship makes the fleet weaker. Every hour they spend searching for us is an hour they are not bombing your cities." "But you are not killing them," Telos observed. "You disable their ships, you leave the crews alive. Why?" Answered this question. He was sitting in the corner of the briefing room, cleaning his rifle with slow, careful movements. Dead enemies are forgotten. Wounded enemies need resources. They need doctors. They need medicine. They need ships to carry them home. A dead soldier costs the enemy nothing. A wounded soldier costs them everything. Telos felt his crystal body grow cold. "That is cruel." "That is war," Jinnah said. "The chose this. We are simply teaching them what it means." The attacks continued. Day after day, the human ships struck without warning and disappeared without trace. The commanders began to panic. They sent more and more vessels to protect their supply lines. The siege of the weakened. But still, the humans did not stop. On the 5th day, led the first boarding party. An ammunition transport had been disabled near the edge of the system. Its crew of 40 soldiers waited inside, weapons ready, prepared to fight to the death. They had heard the stories about humans. They knew that these strange creatures were dangerous. They would not surrender. They would not show weakness. The airlock opened, stepped through alone. He was not wearing a helmet. His face was visible. He was smiling. "Good morning," he said in perfect. "I am Sergeant of the United Nations Space Force. I am here to give you a choice." The soldiers stared at him. None of them fired. They were too confused. "You can fight me," continued. "I will probably kill most of you before you kill me. Your ship will be destroyed. Your families will receive letters saying you died bravely, and nothing will change." He took a step forward. Still, no one fired. "Or you can activate your emergency beacon and wait for rescue. Your fleet will send ships to collect you. Those ships will leave the siege. You will receive reports that humans took your vessel without a fight, and you will live to see your families again." He looked at them with something that might have been kindness. "I have a daughter," he said. "She is 7 years old. I want to see her again. I think you want to see your families too, so let us make a deal. You go home, I go home. Nobody dies today. What do you say?" The commander was silent for a long moment. Then slowly he lowered his weapon. "You are not what we expected," he said. Nodded, "We never are." The story spread through the fleet like a disease. The humans were not just attacking. They were offering mercy. They were leaving soldiers alive specifically so those soldiers could tell others what they had seen. And what they had seen was terrifying. The humans did not sleep. They attacked at all hours without pattern, without warning. They seemed to know where the ships would be before they knew themselves. They fought like they enjoyed it, and worst of all, they were kind. On the seventh day was captured and released. When he returned to the fleet, his hands were shaking. His eyes would not focus. He told everyone who would listen about the human woman who had questioned him. Sora had not tortured him. She had not threatened him. She had simply talked to him for 6 hours, asking about his family, his home, his dreams. She had learned his language perfectly during the conversation. She had laughed at his jokes. She had shared food with him. And then she had told him exactly how the humans were going to win the war, step by step, in perfect detail. She had explained which commanders would surrender first. She had predicted which supply lines would fall next. She had described with terrible accuracy how Warlord would react to each defeat. "She knew everything," whispered. "She knew things that I did not know. She told me the war was already over. She told me that just did not realize it yet." The rumors grew. The soldiers began to call the humans ghosts, demons, monsters that wore kind faces. Warlord ordered anyone spreading fear to be executed. The executions did not help. The fear was already too deep. By the end of the week, the fleet had stopped communicating entirely. Sora had been intercepting their messages and broadcasting them back with corrections. She had broken their encryption in hours. She had turned their own communications into a weapon. On the bridge of the Resolve, Captain Jinnah reviewed the latest reports. "The siege is weakening," Lee observed. "They have pulled 40% of their ships away to protect supply lines. If this continues, the shields will hold." "It will not continue," Jinnah said quietly. "Captain..." Jinnah stared at the tactical display. Something was changing. She could feel it. They were not just scared anymore. They were desperate, and desperate enemies did desperate things. "They are going to escalate," she said. "They are going to do something terrible, something to prove they are still strong." Lee understood. The civilians. "Yes, the civilians." Jinnah's voice was cold. "Is losing, he knows it. He cannot defeat us. So he will hurt the people we are protecting. He will make us watch." She turned to face her crew. "When that happens, everything changes. Do you understand? When they cross that line, we cross it too. No more games, no more mercy. We show them what happens when humans stop being patient." The bridge was silent. "Get some rest," Jinnah said. "Tomorrow, I think, will be a very long day." She was right. The colony was called Crystal Song. It was a small settlement on the fourth moon of the 40,000 people lived there. Artists mostly. Musicians and poets and dreamers who wanted a quiet place to create beauty. They had no weapons. They had no military value. They had never harmed anyone. Warlord destroyed them anyway. The bombardment lasted exactly 4 minutes. Nuclear fire fell from the sky like rain. The beautiful crystal towers melted. The singing gardens went silent. 40,000 voices stopped forever. When it was over, nothing remained but glass and ash. Watched from his command throne with satisfaction. Finally, he had shown these humans that he was still powerful. Finally, he had proven that the Empire would not be humiliated. Let them play their little games. Let them hide in the shadows. When he wanted to kill, he killed. That was all that mattered. He waited for the human response. He expected anger, threats, perhaps a desperate attack that he could crush with his superior numbers. Instead, there was silence. For 3 hours, the human ships did not move. They did not communicate. They simply hung in the darkness like dead things, watching, waiting. On the bridge of the Resolve, no one spoke. Captain Jinnah stood at the center of the room, staring at the display that showed the destruction of Crystal's song. Her face was empty. Her eyes were dry. She did not move. She did not blink. Had stopped working. Her tools lay forgotten on the engineering console. She was staring at nothing, her hands trembling slightly. Had set down his rifle. He sat alone in the corner, looking at the picture of his daughter. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Sora had turned off her communication systems. The constant stream of data that usually surrounded her was gone. She sat in darkness, hugging her knees to her chest. Lee was the one who finally broke the silence. "Captain," he said, his voice was rough, "what are your orders?" Jinnah did not answer immediately. She continued to stare at the display. 40,000. 40,000 innocent beings who had never hurt anyone, gone in 4 minutes, because a warlord was embarrassed, because he wanted to prove he was strong. When she spoke, her voice was very quiet. "Full escalation, no more games." The words hung in the air like a funeral bell. Lee nodded slowly. "I will prepare the battle plan." "No," Jinnah said. "I want you to contact Earth. Tell them what happened. Tell them everything. And tell them we are invoking the Wrath Doctrine." His face went pale. "Captain, are you sure? The Wrath Doctrine has not been used in 50 years. "I am sure." The Wrath Doctrine was humanity's oldest promise. It was simple, it was absolute, and it was terrifying. "Harm civilians and we will find you. Not your fleet, not your military, you." Within 6 hours, 47 additional human warships arrived through emergency jump. They came from 12 different nations. Some of them had been enemies 100 years ago. Some of them were still rivals now. None of that mattered. When the Wrath Doctrine was invoked, humanity spoke with one voice. Captain Jinnah opened a channel to the entire sector. Her message was broadcast on every frequency, in every language, to every ship within 100 light years. "This is Captain Park Jinnah of the United Nations Space Force. 9 hours ago, the Empire murdered 40,000 civilians. This was not an accident. This was not a mistake. This was a choice made by Warlord, a choice that he believed would frighten us." She paused. He was wrong. Humanity now considers the Empire a hostile entity. We do not negotiate with those who murder innocents. We do not forgive. We do not forget. From this moment forward, every warship is a target. Every officer is responsible, and Warlord will answer for what he has done. "This is not a threat. This is a notification. You have been warned." She closed the channel. The human fleet moved. For 9 days, the humans had been fighting smart. They had been patient. They had been merciful. They had offered surrender. They had left soldiers alive. They had played by rules that the galaxy did not understand. Now they stopped playing. The attack began at the outer edge of the formation. A group of human destroyers hit a battle cruiser with overwhelming force. They did not disable it. They did not board it. They cut through its hull like a knife through paper and left it burning in the void. Then they moved to the next target. Warlord watched his outer perimeter collapse in 19 minutes. 19 minutes. Ships that had fought 100 battles were dying like insects. The humans were not hiding anymore. They were not running. They were advancing in perfect formation, their weapons firing continuously, their faces invisible behind their helmets. "Fight back," screamed. "Destroy them." His fleet tried. They outnumbered the humans 6-1. They had more weapons, more armor, more firepower. It did not matter. The humans did not fight like individuals. They fought like a single organism, each ship knowing exactly where the others would be, each weapon striking at exactly the right moment. Had modified the human weapons during the journey. She had improved their targeting systems, increased their power output, removed the safety limits that prevented overheating. The modifications reduced the weapons by 90%. Nobody cared. They would not need them for long. Led a boarding party onto his flagship. He did not offer mercy this time. He did not give speeches. He simply walked through the corridors, eliminating anyone who stood in his way, moving toward the bridge with terrible purpose. Sora took control of the communication network. She did not broadcast jokes or corrections anymore. She broadcast the names, all 40,000 names, the artists and poets and dreamers who had died at Crystal's song. She read them aloud, one by one, while the battle raged around her. Captain Jinnah commanded from the Bridge of the Resolve. Her ship was in the center of the human formation, directing the attack with perfect precision. She did not shout. She did not panic. She gave orders in a calm, steady voice, and her crew obeyed without question. Within 2 hours, the fleet was broken. Ships surrendered by the dozen. Officers abandoned their posts. Soldiers threw down their weapons and begged for their lives. The great siege that had threatened them for 6 months ended in a single night. Warlord was captured alive. Found him hiding in an escape pod trying to flee. He was brought before Captain Jinnah in chains. "You cannot do this," snarled. "I am a warlord. I am protected by the conventions of war." Jinnah looked at him with empty eyes. "The conventions of war protect soldiers," she said. "You are not a soldier. You are a murderer, and murderers face justice." Was taken away. 3 days later, he was tried by a human military tribunal. The evidence was overwhelming. The verdict was unanimous. He was executed at dawn, on the anniversary of the Crystal Song Massacre. The galaxy watched in silence. Humanity had sent a message, not with words, with action, with fire and blood and absolute, unwavering purpose. Harm civilians, and we will find you. We will always find you. 3 weeks after the war ended, Ambassador Telos stood before the Galactic Council. The chamber was enormous. It had been built 10,000 years ago, when the first species had gathered to create laws for the galaxy. The walls were covered with carvings depicting great moments in interstellar history. The ceiling showed a map of known space, with each member species marked by a glowing light. Representatives from 100 worlds sat in tiered rows, watching and waiting. Telos felt very small. The High Chancellor spoke first. She was an ancient being, her body wrapped in flowing robes that hid whatever form lay beneath. Her voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "Ambassador Telos of the Collective, you have violated Council Law 7A. You summoned humans into a galactic conflict. You are here to explain yourself." Telos bowed his head. "I am here to tell the truth, High Chancellor, nothing more." "Then speak." Telos activated the holographic projector he had brought with him. The chamber filled with images. The siege, the failing shields, the desperate messages to the council that had received no response. "My people were dying," Telos said. "We asked for help. You sent nothing. We asked again. You sent thoughts and prayers. We asked a third time. You sent a message telling us that intervention was not possible due to political considerations." The council members shifted uncomfortably. They remembered those messages. They remembered choosing to do nothing. "So I made a choice," Telos continued. "I activated the emergency contact protocol. I summoned humans into our war, and I watched what happened next." The images changed. The arrival of 12 human ships, the destruction of the fuel depots, the slow, methodical campaign that had broken the fleet without a single direct battle. "The humans did not fight the way we fight," Telos said. "They did not form lines. They did not measure strength against strength. They found weaknesses and exploited them. They attacked supply lines instead of warships. They left enemies alive so those enemies would spread fear. They turned their own communications against them." He paused. "And they did all of this with 12 ships against 400. The council watched in silence. Many of them had never seen human tactics before. What they saw disturbed them. "But that is not why I am here," Telos said. I am here because of what happened at Crystal's song. The images changed again. The small colony on the fourth moon, the nuclear fire, the 40,000 dead, and then the human response. The council members watched humans who had been patient become merciless. They watched humans who had offered mercy become instruments of absolute destruction. They watched the fleet, which had dominated the sector for a generation, collapse in 2 hours. The humans have a doctrine, Telos explained. They call it the Wrath Doctrine. It is very simple. If you harm civilians, they will not stop until they find you. Not your military, not your government, you, the person who gave the order, the person who made the choice. He looked around the chamber. Warlord murdered 40,000 of my people. 3 weeks later, he was dead. The humans did not negotiate with him. They did not imprison him. They tried him, found him guilty, and executed him. And they did it in front of the entire galaxy so that everyone would understand. The High Chancellor leaned forward. Understand what? Telos met her eyes. That humans protect those who cannot protect themselves. That humans do not forget. That humans, once they decide a cause is worth fighting for, will burn everything they have to win. He deactivated the projector. You warned us never to summon humans into our wars. You never explained why. I thought it was because you feared what they would do to us. I was wrong. You feared what they would do to our enemies. You feared their commitment, their loyalty, their absolute refusal to surrender. The chamber was silent. My people are alive because of humans, Telos said. My still exists because Captain Park Jinnah and her crew chose to help us. They did not know us. They had no reason to care, but they came anyway. They fought for us anyway. They lost people for us anyway. He bowed his head. I am not here to apologize for summoning them. I am here to thank them, and I am here to ask the council a question. What question? The High Chancellor asked. Why did you do nothing? Telos said. Why did you let my people die? They were breaking your laws. They were committing genocide. You could have stopped them at any time, but you chose to watch. You chose to send thoughts and prayers. You chose to protect your political interests while 40,000 people burned. The council members looked at each other. None of them spoke. The humans have a saying, Telos continued. They say that evil wins when good people do nothing. I think they are right. I think that is why the galaxy fears them, not because they are violent, because they are not afraid to act, because they see injustice and they refuse to accept it. He turned toward the doors. I will accept any punishment the council wishes to give me. I violated the law. I knew the consequences, but I would do it again. 1,000 times I would do it again, because my people are alive, and sometimes that is all that matters. He walked out of the chamber. The council deliberated for 3 days. In the end, they did not punish Telos. They could not. The public had seen the recordings. The public had watched humans die for a species they had never met. The public had seen the council do nothing while innocents were murdered. Instead, the council did something else. They updated the warning. The old warning had been simple. Never summon humans into your wars. It had been carved into stone, written in documents, spoken in whispers for 10,000 years. The new warning was longer, it was more detailed, and it told the truth. Galactic Council Caution 7A, revised. Never summon humans into your wars, not because they are dangerous. They are dangerous, but that is not the reason. Never summon humans because once they decide your cause is just, they will not stop until it is won. They will fight without sleep. They will adapt to any tactic. They will endure any hardship, and they will make you watch what that costs. They call this commitment. They call this loyalty. They call this love. The galaxy has no word for what humans are willing to do for strangers. Be grateful if they fight for you. Be afraid if they fight against you. And never, ever harm the innocent in front of them. Because humans remember, and humans do not forgive. Captain Jinnah read the new warning from the bridge of the Resolve. She was on her way home. Earth was 3 days away. Her crew was tired but alive. The war was over. "That is a lot of words," Lee observed. "The old warning was simpler." "The old warning was a mystery," Jinnah said. "This one is a promise." She looked out at the stars. Somewhere behind them they were rebuilding. Somewhere ahead her home waited. And somewhere in 1,000 different corners of the galaxy, species were reading the new warning and understanding something they had never understood before. Humans were not just dangerous. Humans were hope. The resolve jumped toward Earth, and the stars welcomed them home.